We talk about sales, pre-sales, marketing, but what about post-sales? Well, in this episode, I speak with Jared Orr, who's a customer success manager, and we get a little bit more into those details.
The Tony Moze Podcast.
Hey, thanks, Tony. So my name is Jared. I have been in customer success and been heavily involved in the tech and software space, have a great network of great professionals such as yourself, Tony, in that space, and doing a lot of things. Outside of work, I'm a podcaster, I have a blog, I have an Instagram page for CSM. So just doing a lot of cool stuff. And I look forward to talking to you more about this stuff in our conversation.
Around that time, you're working as a sales operations analyst. What was that role? What was the role of the sales operations analyst?
I worked pretty closely with the VP of sales as an analyst. So I worked heavily in Salesforce. I would pull reports and create dashboards for the sales team. I helped him create a playbook for the sales team. I would talk with the managers frequently about the numbers and then present it to him. So it was a really cool experience. I really got into the nitty gritty of like what it's like working within a sales organization. And I even helped with cold calling a little bit there. So that was a fun experience. Wow. Trying to sell a product I didn't know too much about. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what I was doing.
What was the series of experiences that happened right after your sales op analyst role that until you became the customer success manager at Ideal, where you said, you know what? I want to be a customer success manager. Like, what was that?
Yeah. So I did a couple different things for this company. I was kind of a long-term intern, basically. And part of what I did there was I helped with the implementation team for a little bit. So I helped with client onboarding, product training, things like that, kind of more of the administrative duties for the implementation team because I was an intern. And so then when I graduated, I got a sales job at Yelp, and a great company, great brand, good place to work, but it was like a telemarketing sales gig it was miserable. And I'm glad I had that experience because that's what made me realize, oh man, I want to be more on the implementation, relationship building side than the headhunting, sales, cold calling side. Nothing against cold calling, but what I was doing at Yelp was just absolutely miserable. So that kind of made me want to get more into customer success. I didn't know what customer success was at the time. So basically, when I should have been making cold calls, I was researching jobs because I was just so miserable. And I just was like, I somehow came across customer success. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. This is back in 2018. So customer success was a thing, but like nothing like it is now. You know, it's exploded in a relatively short amount of time. So in 2018, it wasn't as big as it is now. So I came across it, realized I wanted to do it, and started applying for a lot of local positions. And luckily I was able to find a client advocate. So basically customer success, but the role was a client advocate position at a social media marketing company that was just like a block up the street. So it was kind of nice that I found one so close, and it was at a social media marketing company. So a lot of moving parts. It was I kind of got thrown into the fire per se, but it was really that horrible experience right out of college that got me to get into customer success when I did. And I'm glad that happened.
It took a friend of mine who worked in customer success to show me this other interesting role. She showed me Don Pepper's book, which was this thick book. And I'm like, it looked like it came from another decade. From what I've heard, he was regarded as the godfather or whatever of.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you tell us what does a customer success? What does that area entail, and why is it so important today?
Well, to speak about it from a very broad perspective, we help retain clients. We keep them happy, we make them successful, and we retain them. So basically how we do that is really two ways. We make sure they have a great experience working with the company. That entails a lot of different things, but really they have a great experience. And we also make sure that their desired outcomes are delivered on or achieved. So if we can accomplish those two things, then we as customer success managers can be very successful at our jobs. Now, customer success, it's still a new space. Every company does it a little bit differently. So, what I do now and what I did at my first job at the social media marketing company, very different as far as like what kind of made me successful, what I had to do to make my customers successful. So again, but looking at it from like a 10,000 foot view, if we are making sure they have a great experience and delivering on their outcomes, then we are doing our job and we are being a very effective CSM.
I've heard in some companies, customer success can be an umbrella. They have an umbrella of positions. I saw that you were integrations, client advocate, but then again, just what other roles are in that umbrella of customer success and what do they do?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say implementation is a big one. So at my current company, usually when the salesperson signs on a client, they set them up with their platform and then they hand it off to me. I obviously will give them an opportunity to have a demo with me so I can cover things that maybe weren't covered in the sales training. So implementation is a big one, making sure that they are fully onboarded, know how to use the product effectively so that they can have a long-term success with your company. Another one is renewals. Most customer success managers handle renewals. So that's kind of where the sales comes in, right? Unless cross-selling and upselling is involved, renewals is really where the money is when it comes to customer success. We make sure that they have a great experience, that they have their desired outcomes delivered on, so that come renewal time, it's a no-brainer that they're going to continue to sign on with us because we've just delivered an awesome experience for them. Now, some companies have a renewal team that's separate from customer success, just depending on the nature of the product, the nature of the company. And customer success managers are just there to maintain relationships. But both companies that I've worked at in my customer success career, I've completely handled the renewals and I have done a little bit of implementation and onboarding. That's been more sales, but I have within the first 30 days been very heavily involved in making sure that everything is set up correctly and that they are successful long-term. So I would say those are probably the two things: renewals, implementation, and onboarding. And then I said this earlier, cross-selling and upselling. So I don't do any of that at my current company because we have one product, but my previous company, it was social media marketing. We had so many products, different levels for each product. So there was a lot of room for cross-selling and upselling. And we as CSMs, we didn't have quotas per se, but we were expected to constantly be introducing new products to our clients and at least trying to get some more revenue out of them throughout their life cycle.
Would you say this is also based on company? Like if a company's huge, will they then start being like, you know what, we're going to make sure each individual has a sliver of customer success. So we're going to have this one team that's doing integrations, another one that's going to be doing renewals and so on and so forth.
Well, I would argue that every team should have a sliver of customer success, be it sales, product, finance, HR, marketing, whatever. Everyone there should be no internal silos. Everybody should be fully committed to making sure customers are at the forefront of everything they do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say like a company like Salesforce, for example, right? I would think the customers, I don't know if they call them CSMs, but the customer success team, I would think they're pretty separate from the renewal team because it's such a big company, such a big product. They probably, I don't know this for a fact, but they would probably have different teams for different aspects of the customer journey.
This concept, the idea of customer success, has been around since obviously the guy Don Peppers has talked about it, which was in the 80s, but he labeled it as something different at that time.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think, what are your thoughts about the industry now? Are they becoming more, do you think there's more awareness, or do you think there still needs to be more advocacy and awareness for a customer success role?
Well, there should always be more advocacy because it's still in its infancy, I would say. But because just so many companies are realizing, oh, this is actually really important, even though it's a concept that's been around for a little while now, more companies are seeing the value. And I think a lot of that has to do with the events of 2020. Customer success exploded in 2020. And I am so grateful I was able to be basically have a front seat to seeing all of that unfold, which is super great. But yeah, I would say that more companies are seeing the value of it. Salesforce, I used them as an example earlier, but they were a big pioneer in customer success and in customer experience when they started back in the late 90s. And now more software and tech companies are seeing why that's important and following suit with them. Yeah,
it's good. I have come from a long time of doing pre-sales. I've seen it in so many fashions, but just to give you the Hollywood-esque feel of it, it's the idea that, for most places, whether I was selling newspapers or I was part of some MLM some years back, or I was on just any kind of sales team, it's the whole idea of all right, sold the product, to wipe your hands clean, walk away.
Yeah.
On to the next. We don't have to care about that person. They were just numbers to us. And it's saddening to me because I worked in psychology where, it's all about the same characteristics of CSM, relationship building, maintaining those relationships and really being the advocate and being there to see that they are happy, that they're coming out strong, resilient, all these great positive like correlates. So, with what was said just before about the whole siloing and the awareness and the exposure, I'm thinking like, how is it at your company when it comes to pre-sales, handing it off? And how is it, I'm thinking about the handoff from pre-sales to post-sales. The next thing after that I'm seeing is, how is that relationship being maintained between the CSM and like, say, the sales engineer or the solutions architect, whoever it may be? Like how is that at your company? And or what have your experiences been just seeing that out in the industry with that whole handoff and relationship maintaining with internally?
Yeah, the sales to customer success handoff is a hot button topic in the CS space, and it will be for a while until we somehow are able to get kind of a universal almost method that can really work for most companies, specifically in the software and tech space. I would say what I see at my current company is, really the salespeople, when they sign someone on, they make sure that they get their product up and running. We do virtual data rooms. That's our product. And then they just hand it off to me. And I usually say, thank you so much, salesperson, for the handoff. Great to meet you, client. Here's my link. Let's do a quick demo, or let's hop on a quick call just to make sure. And I would say about, 60 to 70% of my clients take me up on that offer, and the others just say, oh, I'm good. No, it's okay. And that's totally fine. I mean, if they feel confident in the product, great, but they know where to find me if they're having a hard time with it. So, but it's just so different everywhere you go. I think the one thing that probably differs the most within customer success is the sales to CS handoff, because a lot of it depends on the product itself, the complexity, how the customer success department is set up. It's just so different everywhere you go.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's going back to the whole idea of like, the generation of things, the awareness. And of course, like you said, the year 2020 is the year now where like things are booming now. Like now it's becoming now. So now I would hope now momentum gains and that there will be obviously more awareness. There will be more sensitivity, and maybe I could say the word scrutiny or whatever into what does each process entail throughout the sales cycle? Because of course, in the post sales, do you have a thing called a sales life cycle, or is that a different word?
Basically, we have a customer journey map. I think is starting to become the more commonly used term, because the customer journey map encompasses everything from the very first touch point, like marketing, to talking with the salesperson, to when they're signed on, to the customer success department. It literally encompasses everything. So I think customer journey map is going to start to be used more than the sales cycle. That's just my opinion and my humble prediction for the near future.
The audience that I'm trying to convey this message to are people who've worked as social workers, therapists. They worked in psychology, the areas of where working with humans and really being empathetic and sympathetic towards people, really caring about them winning in life, them doing well and all that stuff, feeling satisfied, feeling happy. I mean, you can use those kind of metrics. What are the characteristics, just to let people know, I know I'm saying this, but I want to hear everything. Like, what are the characteristics that's needed to be successful in the customer manager role?
Well, there's really three things. Like I said, every company does it differently, especially when it comes to their products and everything. So, but when it comes to just the three things, as far as setting a foundation for a successful career in customer success, it really comes down to these three things. It's be empathetic, be proactive, and be an outrageously great communicator. So if you can be those things, if you can be proactive in managing your book of business, reaching out, because that's really what it is. Like, we're not waiting for customers to call us. We are proactively managing our book of business so that we can identify risks, we can identify opportunities to reach out and to drive value, so that they know that we have their back and we can continue to renew with them and be, long-term partners with them. And then obviously you're dealing with people. So you got to be empathetic. You got to be able to empathize with them, show them that you care, show them that you're here to make sure that you do right by them. I've had many experiences throughout my career so far where I've just had to be like, look, I'm here to help you. We're going to get through this together. We're going to figure this out. It's going to work. And then be an outrageously great communicator. So if you don't like talking on the phone, if you don't like talking to people, customer success probably just isn't for you. And that's totally fine. But if you want to be in customer success, you got to be able to be good at those things. You got to enjoy those things, talking to people and communicating with them so that they can, know that, again, you have their back. So those three things really is what makes a great CSM, and everything else can be taught later on.
In terms of authorities or figures or whatever, if there are some big figures in customer success, who would you say you look up to?
Nick Mehta is a big one. He's the CEO of Gainsight. I've actually had him on my podcast. He's just an incredible individual, great CEO, and just a person, just a great person in general. So he's a big one. Christy Faltarusso is one of the best thought leaders in customer success, as well as Miranda DeKonsky. All three of those individuals they do great things for the community. They're great people. Anyone who has the opportunity to work for any of them is, would have an opportunity of a lifetime. And they're good, down to earth people who you could have a conversation with about anything. But when you talk to them about customer success, you will learn a lot. So definitely be following those three for sure.
And what are some books in customer success, as well as books around customer success, you would recommend that you've already read?
Mm-hmm. The Customer Success Professional's Handbook. Every CSM needs to have this book on their bookshelf. It's perfect in every way. Another one, The Startup's Guide to Customer Success. One of my favorite books, Jennifer Chang. I've had her on my podcast too. And this book is pretty much, I said this before, it's like the Bible for startups. Every startup needs to have this on their bookshelf. And then one more, I would say The Outcome Generation by Paul Henderson. I've had him on my podcast as well. And this really just talks about how we're living in a time where delivering on customer outcomes has never been more important. And he does a deep dive into kind of what that is and how we can do it effectively. So these three books are must reads for any aspiring CSM or current CSM.
And what else do you have maybe in the near future of what you want to read or that you're planning to read?
I definitely want to read The Chief Customer Officer. Okay. I forget who wrote that, but that's a big one because I would love to be a chief customer officer. Oh, there you go, right there. Yeah, Janie Bliss. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, that one. I think that's next on my, because there's a lot of subjects I like to read about. Right now, I'm reading Atomic Habits, so it's not customer success related, but it definitely is something that can help in your career. So, but customer success related, it's definitely that one. That's the next one on my list.
Well, again, Jared, thank you so much for coming on this show.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony.